This is a Double Face, a true crime podcast. Please make sure to follow, like, and subscribe and get the notifications when a new episode drops. Please help by leaving a 5-star review. It helps the small podcasters like ourselves. Thank you again. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. Oli Olis! Hey guys, it's us again.
Hi.
It's so weird, right? So I'm trying to,
The other way.
the cameras flip the other way, and we both are used to seeing each other.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to change it up a little bit this week. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but
All I want to do is this.
I know is it cold in here?
No.
It feels good, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to change it up a little bit by doing scary stories. I kept being asked online, can you do scary stories? Can you do scary stories?
He's going to have to do those because he's better at them than I am.
Well, even so, I thought we'd try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But because also sometimes we need like a palate cleanser in between.
Yeah.
These cases can be a lot, right?
No, they are a lot. They are. Definitely for me. It weighs on me.
And
For sure.
that's why
Yeah.
I'm like, I should take a break in between. It's not going to be as often,
Mhm.
but if you guys write them in, we can also read them too. We can read them on the podcast. But for right now, I thought I would figure I'd go with it. I don't think that these are going to be super scary like that. They're not going to be like that. I think they're going to gradually get there. I'll have one of my own at the end, but I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that it's not your normal, regular schmegler one. But anyway, and then you can share if you have like a scary story at the end. If you don't, that's fine. No?
You know I don't do scary at all. At all. I don't watch scary movie. Nothing.
I know she likes
Nothing.
LMN movies. Like, I'm all,
Can be romantic, rom-com, comedy, can be action, Chris Evans.
yes, but not scary.
But not scary at all.
I don't know what it is. I love scary.
Even
Anyway,
my daughter do, yeah.
yeah, that's what we had in common. We'd always watch scary movies. But either way, let's go ahead and let's start off this one. So I got these on Reddit, and I'll tell you the name of it, but it's whoever posted it. So I don't know if they want to be known or whatever. Anyway, it's specific occasion 307. So I've had many scary encounters over the last few years. Ghost encounters, shadow people on the road, but this one takes the cake for me. I've never felt so shaken to my core that I've had to emotionally recover from the experience. This happened recently too, about a week ago. Here's my story. So me and my girlfriend had taken a trip to Sandusky Cedar Point for the Halloween Fright Night, and we were both a fan of horror and thrill rides. Of course, we picked probably the worst weekend to go, as it literally broke the record for the park's busiest weekend. Most of the rides were over 2 hours of wait time, and we became fed up, and so we decided to leave the park. I would have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to come up with things to do as we looked up in the local area, when we stumbled upon some local haunting legends, which every city has, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of which stood out to us. So about 30 minutes from Sandusky is a place called Gore Orphanage Road in Vermilion, Ohio. You can look it up on your own, but it'll keep the story, just to keep the story short, I'll briefly explain. Gore Orphanage Road had an actual orphanage, or so the story goes, that burned down. A ton of kids and caretakers were inside the building. Many people have experienced hauntings there, as ghost activities in the ruins. There's also nearby a bridge where a woman threw a baby off the side of the road and then killed him, called Crybaby Bridge. I feel like that's everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
As we kept digging, we read a lot of scary stories, including one about a murder that happened where a woman was hung in the woods, and evenly supposedly a satanic cult that does rituals in the woods and have been spotted from time to time. So we of course thought of nothing of it. Just scary stories meant to scare people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our original plan was to go there at night, but because we were so bored and we had read that people were getting in trouble from police going at night, so we decided to go at dusk, just before it got dark. So our plan was to park at the bridge and then make the half-mile hike to the park where the orphanage ruins are.
Wow.
I know. As and see if we can experience anything, and then go back to our hotel with some spooky stories to tell our friends. So, right before the bridge is a little side dirt spot to park. So, we park, we go out of the car, and we lock it. We walk over to the bridge, and we don't experience anything on the bridge. So, we just keep walking to the park. On the left side of the road is an embankment covered in trees. And on the right is a cornfield. Typically, it's a country road. However, the closer we got to the park, the more that we started to smell fire. At one point, we got out a few hundred feet from the park, and the temperature changed from brisk 50s to a very warm, despite there being more shade. We both looked at each other and commented on how warm it got all of a sudden. But we kept moving. So we enter the park and immediately see some markers from where the old orphanage used to be. So we stop and take some pictures. We were both extremely quiet, so we could hear or see anything out of the ordinary. The first thing we noticed is that there's a constant, regular knocking on the trees. We began to feel a bit uneasy at this point, and so we started to venture to the park. We didn't want to get lost, so we stuck to the preordained path that would like point out the building, the rubble at the as we went. And so at this point, me and my partner heard a child screaming. I would have left right there and then.
Mm-hmm.
A child screaming, which stopped both of us on our tracks. As we kept walking, it smelled like a perfume. Like somebody had sprayed it right in front of me, but not my girlfriend's perfume. And at one point, I heard something crunching leaves right behind my girlfriend. So we both stopped and I took a picture. I caught nothing in the photo, but it was enough for us to decide to leave. So we both felt queasy being there. So we started, and it started to get darker. So we decided to head back. Good idea. Híjole Dios. I would have left with that first child.
It's so scared though. It's funny.
I would have left it. I don't care. I wanted to see scary stuff, but I would have left right there and then. Vámonos, colera. So you think that that's the scariest part of the story, but it's not. As we were leaving, two cars pulled up on the entrance of the park, which freaked us up just a little bit. We started to walk back to the car, partially because we were on edge, and partially because we were socially awkward and didn't want strangers to encounter in the park. I feel like that's everyone. Mm-hmm. Nobody really wants to talk to anybody. As we were walking back to the car, an older blue and white pickup truck comes, like carrying around the corner, burning rubber, probably going around 55 in a 30 miles, which is a little small road. The guy pulls up to me, rolls down the window, and says something along the lines of, "I almost just made a mistake," and laughed and then just peeled off, tires spinning, and took off. I had assumed that he just was a redneck who wanted approval from the cool drift. Just reading the character, starts power walking back to the car. So we both are like, she heads that way, I head that way. About 2 minutes later, the truck pulls back up, comes to us, coming from the other way, slamming on his brakes next to us, just staring. As we kept walking, he kept inching his truck closer to us. We both look over, and he, with one little creepy finger, motions for his girlfriend to come here. I managed to get back to look at him in his face and could only describe as an unsettling. He had this very greasy, receding hairline that caked over his forehead and a creepy grin on that. So I can mentally picture it. Oh, I am too bothered by this guy. So I sort of get in between the truck and then I wave him off, and he gets mad. And it does a burnout his tires and takes off over the bridge. He headed back to the car and immediately locked the doors after we got in. Finally, the first good thing he did. I pulled the car around and we left. We didn't speak for something like about 10 minutes. We were just in shock. You know, I'm scared of something when I'm driving. I just kept checking the rear view mirrors. Every time I checked the rear view mirrors, I was terrified that the guy was going to follow us back. I would have been the same way, to our hotel room. So the entire 45-minute drive I spent checking the rear view every chance I got. Now, I don't know what the guy's intentions were, whether he just wanted to talk to us or whether he just planned on kidnapping us. I'm not sure. but we're very lucky that we didn't have a gun. We're lucky that the other people were nearby, and it was still daylight. So yeah, if we had gone at night, I think it would have been a different story. If you ever have are in the Vermilion area, do not go to the Gore orphanage area alone, or even go. Period. If you decide to go, don't go at night. If you see a blue and white pickup truck, run. You may not get lucky like we did. I feel like that's not too bad. I've had an experience like this when I went to remember the train tracks here in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
We had something like that, and this was when we were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I was with Nancy, a friend of ours,
Mm-hmm.
and we were about to leave because it wasn't anything to hype about. And this guy gets off and starts filming. So we don't really think anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's just filming out there, and he points to us, and he just stares. And so we're like, okay, well, we're gonna walk back to the car. And then he says, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And I don't know which girl said yes. So yeah, sure. And he's like, "What do you think about the devil?"
Oh God.
Mind you, this is at night. It's around like 11 p.m. It's the perfect night to like scare you. And we both were like, Me and Nancy went, see ya. We turned around and said, see ya. I think we had to like tug at one of the girls to be like, let's go. And we sure did leave. I don't know if Nancy was the pendeja that stayed behind or it was Maria and I that left. Well, I don't know which girl it was, but we left. And as we walked, they started realizing, like, oh, we should leave too. She left. I was like, I don't know why you stay talking to him.
That's scary.
Because he had like a weird grin on his face when he said it. I was like, no, I'm good. Thank you. So this one's from Altruistic Pitch 956. 956, sorry. Hi, 956.
96.
Uh-huh. So it was 6 days after my 22nd birthday. The year was 2017, and my boyfriend at the time decided to get us a dog. I've always loved animals, but could never get a pet as a child. So finally owning a pet was an ecstatic experience for me. The days after my birthday, I was with finding all these new trails in New York City parks and spending hours upon hours outside playing with the puppy. Her name was Reese's, like Reese's
Oh.
Pieces, Reese's Pieces, sorry. Most in the Riverside Park because at the time we lived in shared townhouse right outside of Riverside. One night my boyfriend was out in a dinner work party, leaving me in alone with the Reese's. I've never liked being outside at night alone. It's not very safe as a woman, so I was very hesitant to even step outside to walk. Every time I tried to slip on my sandals, I got this foreboding, ominous feeling that something very, very bad was outside. However, I eventually mustered enough courage to get out since Reese's was scratching at the door and clearly needing to use the bathroom. When I walked outside, the darkness completely enveloped us. Even with the lampposts, the air seemed heavy. Now, I may remember this only because I was so nervous, but at the moment we walked into Riverside, things started just to get weird. New York City has always had a homeless issue,
Mm-hmm.
so it was no surprise to see groups of homeless huddling around the trees, doing God knows what. Around 5 minutes later into our walk, Reese started pulling my hand, holding the leash like I've simply never felt before. Even now, I own a Great Dane, mind you. Reese's was a small 20-pound miniature poodle. She pulls me up one of the hills and doesn't stop until we reach a small area of the wood, which is unusual because Riverside is incredibly vast and it doesn't have many wooded areas. So she pulls me into the forest area and suddenly it's pitch black. No lampposts inside, nothing. At this point, I'm getting really, really freaked out, and Reese's just won't stop pulling. And since we're going down the slope, it would be nearly dangerous to try and pull back up. So I keep following her to the bottom of this little ditch like hill. In all the years of living in New York City, I've never seen nothing like this, a hill in Riverside, until she stops dead. She sniffs around, and I've, I've seen nothing like this in the hill. So it becomes very clear that I'm standing on shit. or very close to it. So I pull out the flashlight, and when I see that the it's starting to terrify me for this terrified me for years. There was a potty, like the little things children use, the little
Oh, the putty.
container. Yeah,
Okay.
that potty, and a cardboard box around the tree. I was for being curious. I gotta be careful with those curiosities. I approach the box, and inside is a large serrated knife,
Oh.
a dildo, a pocket pussy. I look around us, and I realize that there's torn pages from porn magazines stomped into the mud area, many containing plus size women. I clearly remember kneeling down to look at one, and I'm not sure if it was fear coursing through my body, but colorful, stimulating colors instead. These women were surrounded by completely black voids. And on the page, a woman had on underwear, same shade of black on her, making it look like if her growing area was part of the void. Not to mention that there were some of those torn magazine pages that were drawings from a red marker, many of which had covered their eyes in red. I myself am very spiritual and very aware of different energies and managing them, something that was not right. At this point, I was starting to get really freaked out. Barely, girl,
As soon as you opened it, I would have been like, I'm out.
I'm out.
Because that's just a potty and the other things that you found. That's
Serrated
weird.
knife,
Oh.
those sexual things.
Yeah.
I know what I've heard. So I'm so sorry you stepped over it. I, at this point, I'm starting to get really freaked out, knowing that I walked right into a very bad person den when I hear footsteps in the mud. I told people this, and sometimes they say I imagined the footsteps, but I know what I heard. I even remember the sound of their shoes, and it was unmistakably flip flops because I heard the flap
Yeah.
of when the shoes hits the your ankle. And as some people I've told thought it was maybe a park ranger with boots on.
Not when it's that's different from flapping of the flip
Yeah,
flop.
I don't know. I used to live in Chicago, and even when you're like stepping on ice with boots, it doesn't it doesn't make that same
Yeah, like the hitting of the back of your foot.
exactly. It's not the same noise. I've never felt as desperate to get out of a place before, and so I grab Reese's, put him in my arms, and run up the hill. I don't stop running until I reach the doorsteps, where I run inside and I lock all the doors. I waited all night for my boyfriend to get back home. And even after I was outside the park, I felt uneasy. When he came back home, I told him all about it, and he suggested I call the police because of the knife. The next day, we walked down to Riverside, hoping Reese's will pull us back to that place, but she doesn't. We spent all day in the park trying to find the same place so that we could take photos of the knife and turn it in.
Mm-hmm.
We never found it. A week following, we tried to find it again and even asked people if they knew of the ditch, but nobody knew about anything. I'm not sure what's more unsettling. What I found in the ditch and the fact that I could never find it again is it still haunts me to this day, and I could only wonder what the knife was used for. People have said maybe it was just a weapon for a homeless person to protect themselves. But there was something wrong in that area. There was some bad energy, even when I stepped out of the door. If there's any New Yorker out there reading this, do you know anything of the ditch in Riverside? Maybe I'll go out and look for it again. I'll never fully be able to sleep surrounding soundly until I find for sure what if that place exists. That's something that I was like, I'll explain to you later. Is I can never I've had experience where I can't describe how when you for sure know that you heard this.
Mm-hmm.
She saw these things, right? But like the first story, they heard it, right? I've been somewhere where it was just me, and sometimes I'll work out outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll come across a scent, and I'm nowhere near anyone or anyone that's passed by, and you could just tell. So I'm always like, wow, where's that scent coming from? And I just think it's weird. In the first one, when he said the first story, where he says like we smelled a perfume, almost like he sprayed it on my face.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. I've had that before, but I always think to myself that, oh, somebody passed by,
Yeah.
and let their perfume smell. Like in the house, no, because we have scents all over and we
Yeah.
spray. But this usually happens outside. Mm. So the last, well, second to the last story is this one. Is I'm going first to say that this is my personal narrative for my English third class final. So at the end of the course, this is my moral reflection and moral introduction. But I thought I would share it because it was some horror aspect to it. I've always been fascinated with the mind, how it works, and everything like that. But the thing that has intrigued me is the most is in dreams. How can something so small create a whole different reality within itself? I honestly don't know the answer. I feel that the dreams had a child as a child were so peculiar. Now you could say that as time moved on, my memories could have slowly faded. But there's always been one dream that truly sat with me. A nightmare. I was only about 7 years old at the time. We had just moved into our new house and I was getting used to everything. It was night, and my parents got me ready and brought me to my bed. My mother, as always, tucked me into my bed, kissed me softly on my forehead, sending me off to a good night's sleep. As my mom left, she turned off the light and left my door open just a crack. I turned over to my right side, the side I usually sleep on, closed my eyes, and went to bed. As a child, I had these recurring dreams in which I felt trapped. It was hard to explain, but it was almost like feeling a having a feeling of control over that was happening. And still to this day, my head seems to hurt from fear of whatever feeling I was experiencing. As you may have guessed, the night began with the dream. And I remember myself waking up. The room was dark, and I started to cry and yell for my parents. And they urgently rushed into my room. And they told me that it was just a dream. Once they left, I fell asleep. This part of the story is just a little fuzzy, but I do remember in my dream playing basketball with my friends. This went on for what felt like for hours or so, and then I woke up again, or at least I thought. As I got older, I learned that lucid dreams are a false awakening, events in which you think you woke up, but you're truly still asleep. It turns out that that night it was a false awakening, but not a good one. My room was dark, more dark than usual, and there was some soft humming coming from the hallways. Through the crack of the door, I could see what I could see. I can only describe as a ghostly glow surrounding my by fog. As I looked around the room, I felt a sense of loneliness. I felt like there was nothing I could do. I felt trapped. My heart was beating. I could feel it beating out of my chest. My breathing got heavy, and I could feel it was cold, a spine tingling rush of fear. At this point, I still thought I was really awake. Everything felt so real. I could even feel the brush of my sheets as I lay there. What else could I think of? I started to yell, "Mom! Dad!" But my voice felt like I had disappeared. I stopped yelling and went quiet. So I started to hear slow steps coming from the carpeted hallway floor. I thought to myself, everything was okay. I had got my parents' attention. Everything was fine. That was far from the truth. The door of my room opened slowly, and what it looked like my mom and stepdad stepped in. The odd thing, though, was that they were not my parents. The two beings sported like a white mask with a drawn-on face. I was frozen. I couldn't move. The two beings just stood there, staring at me. My heart was beating faster now, and I started to hyperventilate. One of them raised their hand, and it was a tan vase. I blinked. As I opened my eyes, the bean, the vase was standing over my bed. I stood it, still holding it in its position. That seemed like it was getting ready to smash it. I lay there in my bed, shocked. There was a voice, almost a whisper in my ear.
Ooh.
It whispered one word: dream. As soon as I heard the words were spoken in my ear, I woke up. My heart was still beating, but a ray of sunshine breached my window, beaming onto my face while lying in bed. I turned to the door while my dream had occurred. I smiled, just happy that it was finally over. Once again, dreams are important, even if we don't understand them. They're always meaning. I feel like this is happening to show me how people can change and how to avoid the bad people. I don't I don't know how he got the last part of to avoid people, but I feel like I don't know, that doesn't make sense to
It
me.
doesn't make sense to me either. That was creepy as fuck
Mm,
for me because I could just
I could
picture.
see that
Yeah.
the face. You know, this is why I call I when I was doing the podcast, I didn't know what to call it, and I called it the double face
Mm-hmm.
because we all have the face that we show to people, and then we all have the behind the closed doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just a switch, right? It's not that much of a difference, but sometimes it is. Sometimes we're hiding behind this mask of politeness or smiles that behind closed doors. That's why I did the podcast, because I wanted you to see that sometimes these unknown people that kill people or murderers and so
Mm-hmm.
forth, they're really sweet, they're really nice, and people always say, "Oh, I would have never thought so and so was a murderer because he was such a sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pillar of the community." But that's what I want. That's why I called it that. Anyway, let me explain to you one time. I was in theater school, and it was in Dallas, Texas. So my best friend, one of my other best friends, Bianca and I, we were, I don't know what, I've had a really interesting, I've had difficulties with religion, right? And I don't know where I fit in, especially since I'm a gay man. And I've had trouble trying to find where I feel the safest religion wise. But we were following the Catholic religion at this time, and we were doing the Rosario. And have you ever done it?
No.
So if you know what a Rosario is,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yes.
A rosary.
Yeah.
And so you go through it, all of it. You go bead by bead, and you do our Father who art in heaven, blah blah, and then Hail Mary full of grace, and then you do the whole thing. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Hail Mary full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed art thou, and you just keep going all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
You go all the way through the whole bead, and you finish it off. And we had the Bible at the time, and we'd kind of follow it step by step. We were getting really. It was one of those things where the room, we'd get so tired that her and I would just fall asleep on her bed
Mm-hmm.
in her room, because it was just that's how exhausted we were afterwards. But we seemed to keep doing it every single night. Every night we just did the rosario, got closer, and it felt nice. um I One night, sorry if you can hear my roommate, he snores, I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
One night we I fallen asleep, right? We had closed the Bible up, and we put the rosario, and Bianca was like, "Hey, just sleep right here." I was like, "Don't tell me twice. I knocked out." So the way it was set up is that the room, when you walked in, it was a to the left. There was only one window. The window faced the parking lot, and then the parking lot after that was this wooded area, but it had a trail, so it wasn't that scary, right? So it had a nice trail that would go on and on. Just like here in San Antonio, there's plenty of trails that would just take you for miles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this night, I remember we did the Rosario. I fell asleep. Bianca happened to be closest to the window. I just, for some reason, woke up. You wake up in the middle of the night, not
Mm-hmm.
thinking anything. So I wake up, and I'm laying there because I'm trying to go back to sleep. My phone we weren't as hooked on phones as we are now. So I didn't have it available like that. So I just lay there, and I was thinking to myself, and then I hear a noise, and it sounds, and I don't know how to I don't know how to tell you, like describe it to you, but I can mimic it ish. So I hear a noise that sounds like it's coming from not where the parking lot is, but where that wooded trail is. And at first, I think it's an animal because I hear, but it's so distant
Mm-hmm.
that I think, oh, these cats, they're probably boinking or something, whatever. I was excusing whatever the noise was, so I don't think anything of it. And then as I'm laying there, because I'm still trying to fall asleep, the sound gets closer, and I could hear, but this time the noise doesn't sound. It's not a quick noise. This time it's, and every time it sounds like the noise is going just is stretching more and more. And now it's starting to give me like, you know those goose pimples you
Mm.
get on your arm? I'm starting to get
Goosebumps. Yeah.
that. My hair is starting to raise on my arms. And I'm starting to realize that this isn't an animal because it doesn't feel right. I don't know how to explain it, but it just doesn't feel right. So Bianca at the time, you couldn't just wake her up.
Hmm.
Um, I think you still can't wake her up, but before you couldn't just like if I were to do that, I'd be like, Melissa, get up. And you'd what? But
Yeah,
you'd
I
get
get
up,
scared.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, anyone would. Well, Bianca, I knew not to wake her up immediately out of her realm sleep because it's she doesn't know that there's like it's a dream. She thinks she's still dreaming.
Yeah.
Like that's how in like in place in her dreams she would stay. So anyway, I would lightly tap her. So I started tapping her because the noise started getting closer, and it was and it would just stay like that. There was pauses in between, so I thought every time that it was over. Well, I was still trying to wake up Bianca, and I was like, Bianca, 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 and I was lightly rubbing her like her hand, trying to like get her to ease up and wake up. And I was like, Bianca, it's me, it's Jose, get up, Bianca. As she finally woke up, she's like, hey, what happened? What's going on? And I said, hey, sorry. I said I can't sleep, but I keep hearing this noise. And she's all, what? Her eyes bug out, and I could
Hmm.
tell she is no longer like, what's wrong? She's more like, why the fuck did you wake me up? And I tell her, I keep hearing the noise, and it's coming from the window. I said, it's like it keeps moving closer and close. And as I was about to finish that sentence, you hear, right next to the window. She is I've never seen Bianca this terrified in front of her. And I was like, and I'm whispering in her ear, like, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And she is like, she doesn't know what else to say. She can't muster any words up and all. She's just nodding. And I said, do I look? And she's like, no, don't look, don't look. And she's like getting angry as I want to check. I said, are you sure? Let me just check. And she's like, no, don't look. Because we were getting closer and closer, I think spiritually, I think that was something that we talked about it later.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like it felt ominous and it felt unwelcoming.
Hmm.
So we ended up praying that night, and we as we continued to pray, we both for some reason knocked out. We I don't know how to explain it. I've heard this in stories, but you just knocked out. I You would think that you'd be too scared to go back to sleep, but we just did. We prayed, and the next day we woke up, and I was like, "Was that a dream?" I said, "I had a weird dream," and she said, "That wasn't a dream. You woke me up, and that was not a dream." And I was like, "Oh, so it did happen." She says, "Yes." I was like, "I heard it too. I heard it right next to the window." And it is something that I can never explain. But at that apartment complex, it was like one thing after another, that we both had to say, like, that's it.
We're leaving.
We're
Yeah.
leaving. This is too many things happening in one little area. So it's just one of those creepy things that I was like, I was as I was reading these stories, I was like, huh, that's it's like something similar to these kind of stories, but
Hmm.
it's like I took something out from it from each of them. But yeah, I just anyway, that's usually that those are the scary stories that I wanted to share with you guys. I know it's a little different from our normal, but I feel like we need it sometimes. So I think we'll continue this from time to time because we need to have excuse me, we need to have palate cleansers because some of these stories, because they're real, it's it's a lot
Hmm.
and it's too much sometimes for us.
Hmm.
But Melissa has more than one word, I promise.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my god, because I'm telling you, I don't like scary anything, and some of these, I've had some of these encounters. It's crazy. I hate the unknown because I can't control it, so
So
therefore it freaks me out. That's always just like,
I know I'm talking to somebody who was a control freak too, and I'm the same way. And it's weird, right, to have like no answers.
no answers, and I hate it. I hate it.
I was reading a few of the other stories. Sorry to go real quick.
Yeah.
I was reading a few other stories to see which one's gonna. I didn't want to get too scary because
Yeah.
sometimes it's just too much. But as I was reading some of them, I was like, I know this is too even for me. I was like, I know this is too much, mamita.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna read this, but it's because they were like one of them was a trip in Mexico and it was late at night and they started seeing somebody that shouldn't be there.
Mm-mm.
I said, I know.
Because your mind and your eyes can play tricks on you when you start your mind starts going. Oh God, no.
And it's so weird because some of them explain that same justification of no, it's probably just my mind playing tricks on me because I'm scared and
Mm-hmm.
one of them was hyperventilating, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So you can start imagining, but no, they were like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, this happened. I hate when you tell somebody and your friends are like, it was nothing.
You
It
tell
was,
me, I'll believe it.
me too. I'm like, ay, Dios mío.
That's what I was like, oh.
Especially if there's like truth behind it.
Yep.
Like if you're not just joking around.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I wanted to have palate cleanser. So this is your palate cleanser. If you want to share your story, send it to josenajuan1@gmail.com. That's my content creating stuff. I'll put it on the descriptions, josenajuan1, the number one, @gmail.com. Thank you again. Bye, guys. Love you. Dame un
Bye.
besito. Gotta go. Bye.